Whatever you think of Mikel Arteta as a manager, I think we can agree that he is a class act as a person, which he demonstrated by instructing his players to keep the win over Everton respectable. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter. Yeah, he has great affection for David Moyes. He spoke in, I thought, respectful tones and terms about the new stadium that they've built and his affection for the club. And he demonstrated that by having his players waste a lot of really effective attacking moves rather than scoring too many goals and humiliating his friend and mentor, David Moyes, and the fans of the club that he respects. So I thought that was a classy action by him. We did what I think is a really interesting thing in the last couple of days. On Thursday, we did a podcast where we disagreed with each other on stuff. On the instant reaction, we massively disagreed with each other on stuff. And much to my surprise and delight, people actually enjoyed that. Maybe we'll do more of that, disagreeing on stuff. Depends whether we agree or not. I have to say, I think this is a time of year to recognize we all go through life alone. We are traveling through this universe, prisoners in the isolation of our mind. And within our mind palace, we have just these two windows we call eyes to see the world, or two ears to hear the world. We have these ways of taking in the external factors that influence what's happening inside this prison of our own isolation. And so when we experience things, we then travel outside of our isolated experience to try to connect to what other people are feeling and believing so that we can lift the veil, the cloak of this isolation that we experience. And I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say here, but I think we'll get there together. What I'm saying is that this game is a great example of that because I found it really divided opinion. And I think the extent to which it divided opinion really depends on what you needed from it, the priors you brought into it, the anxiety you experienced during it, the goals that you had for the performance itself, and of course for the result, which was 3 points once again. So all of these things are fascinating to me because what we have with social media is the ability to instantly connect to a zeitgeist of how other people are feeling and then be influenced by it. Ultimately, though, we have to speak our truth about how we experienced a game. And I'm excited to do that on this podcast because I think everybody has their little nuanced different takes on this. And so if you didn't get the instant reaction, I think you'll get a little flavor for that today. But having had a day or two to sort of sit with our thoughts about the game, I'm curious to see how they've evolved. What I do want to say is just thank you for being here because increasingly when I go on to the internet to try to discuss Arsenal, I find that any even mild disagreement over any of the topics that I find interesting anyway, related to our club, simply cannot be discussed in a way that's productive. And that's unfortunate because I used to really enjoy going onto social media and having conversations with people who I enjoyed and respected and learning what they thought and learning more about the club and learning more about the game and then engaging in those discussions. And as that becomes more difficult, I think the way that we're able to engage with one another around the podcast and in the spaces we share together has been really helpful. So thank you for that. I hope you'll continue to go on that journey with us as we try to break down this game together. And here to do that with me is Tim. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
And Clive. Hello, Clive.
Hello, hello.
I do want to say I recorded a first version of that intro that will never be heard because we had an internet issue. And I think it was the superior version. But you know what? Maybe we'll release it as our Christmas message, a message of isolation for everyone to usher in Christmas holiday. And I should say, for those who will be celebrating the upcoming holiday, I hope all is well with you. I hope that you have the time to spend with loved ones and share in some quiet reflection and some time together and some peace and joy and harmony. I know there are those of you who will not. And for those of you who are going through any hardship, please know that you are loved, that we certainly wish you the best and hope for better things in the new year. So, for everybody out there who's experienced something, we all want better things for the future. So, Clive, I guess I'll start with you. What are your holiday plans?
I don't know. A bit of podcasting, a bit of football watching after the game tomorrow night. Family's all back home. My kids are all back home. So the piglets are in the building. And,
that's nice. Yeah.
And so, I turned into a full-time.
Do you review the statement of accounts of what they've cost you over the last year and over the last decade, and then you reconcile those accounts?
It's quite interesting because they come back and they turn into real young kids when daddy's paying. Do you know what I mean? And then when they leave, they're adults. And so, it's going to be an expensive couple of days, but all good fun. So, looking forward to it. Go and watch a couple of non-league games. And at the same time, there's lots of football to do. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's funny because my parents, my mom just turned 84 2 days ago. My dad turned 84 a couple weeks ago. They've been married 52 years as of December 15th. And it's crazy, even at my advanced age and their advanced age, when I'm with them, I'm their child and they're my parents. It's just that dynamic doesn't change. And so trying to cherish some of that time that we have together. And spending some time with their grandkids, with my kids, and they're off school now for 2 weeks. It's really nice for the first couple of days. Then you start to wonder, why is it 2 weeks? Why do they need 2 weeks away from school? But for now, it's nice to have them here and just sort of a festive feeling around the house. How about you, Tim?
Yeah, going to go to, well, hopefully like work will stop at some point with the men's and women's schedules being both simultaneously quite crazy recently. I've done a lot of double weekenders. I went straight from the game on Saturday evening, got a midnight coach back into London, arrived back into London just before 7 a.m. and went straight to Sutton to cover the women's game on no sleep. So, and that was after the weekend before doing Everton away with the women and coming back for the Wolves game. So I've kind of lost 2 weekends, and I was away last week covering a women's game in Belgium. So like there isn't a football match outside of London now for quite a while for me, which is really, really welcome. But it's my sister's birthday on Christmas Day, so we're going to go there.
Oh, your poor sister.
Yes,
she doesn't get to have her own day. She's celebrating her birthday every Christmas, huh?
Yeah. So, which was annoying for me when I was a kid because Christmas Day kind of stopped after Christmas lunch, and then had to be her birthday when I just wanted to go and play like the new FIFA or whatever. But yeah, so I'm going to do that, see my mum and all of that, and really looking forward actually to the game tomorrow night because that I think feels like it's going to usher in Christmas properly. I'll go up slightly early, meet some friends, have some drinks before the game. And I think that's when it will feel like Christmas to me.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, did when your sister was born, did like 3 older gentlemen who were all quite wise show up at the house with gifts or anything?
It's funny, like my mum did toy with calling her like Holly or Carol or something like that, but she didn't in the end. She kind of resisted that urge. But I think it's all right for her now. She's older, but like her kids, they're just coming to the age where they grudgingly accept it because they've had to go through what I went through. Elliot, the scars of which I still bear.
And I feel
like Christmas being like mum's birthday. It's like, what? Christmas, it's for us. It's not for mum. It's for us. So
does she celebrate a second birthday on Easter too? Just to keep with the theme, or not really?
Or like the Queen. But no.
No. Okay. Enough. Wow. We did waffle. Great job, guys. Great job. And our love, obviously, to Paul and Phil and Scott and all the guys who helped make the podcast great as well. So, okay, into the game, and I guess, Tim, I don't want to do a big section on this because we waffled for 8 minutes, but maybe quickly your grumpy man's view of modern football grounds and why you're against #modern football.
Yes. Okay. Look. So this is a personal opinion, and I don't hate every new stadium I go to. I have to like grudgingly accept that Tottenham's new stadium is, as much as it feels like the Tottenham Hotspur all-purpose entertainment arena. It doesn't always feel like a football ground. It's still really good. I hate to say it, but it is. So I'm not like one of those. I hate all modern stadia. I loved Goodison. I really, really did. But I like, obviously it's very dated and Everton had to move, like that had to happen. I completely understand that. But yeah, I didn't like the stadium at all. It just looks like an exact copy of Tottenham's on the inside. To be fair, ours looked like a car park for a couple of years until they got the time and maybe a bit of extra cash to...
The Arsenalization,
stick some statues up, put a wrap around it and all of that. So maybe that will happen in time to make it feel more like Everton Stadium rather than, nameless and all-purpose entertainment arena type thing. But it was... It's quite far out of town, which, again, that kind of has to happen, and we're so lucky that didn't happen to us. Mm-hmm. But what's weird about it, Elliot, is the design of the concourse. Everyone that was there on Saturday will know exactly what I mean and will say the same thing. The design of the concourse is weird. It's so weird. It creates all these little bottlenecks. There's like one place to buy food and there's one place to buy beer. So Arsenal, as they do every Christmas, they dish out free drinks tokens to all the travelling fans, which is a lovely thing they do, by the way. Should talk about it more, but they buy you a drink last away game before Christmas every year to say thank you. I don't think anyone used it because you can't get a drink. There's like 6 urinals for like 3,000 people. So the toilet situation's awful, and it's like genuinely Goodison was better for going to the toilet and getting a drink. So maybe they're kinks that will be ironed out in time. But no, I wasn't a fan.
Okay. You didn't answer the question everybody was wondering, which is, does the beer fill from the bottom up? But I guess we'll just have to wonder that since you didn't get one.
I didn't get anywhere near close enough to see.
Yeah. It is funny. Maybe it's my advanced age, but I do think a big part of a stadium experience is how easy it is to get to a toilet when you need one.
Yep. It really is. It really that's an incredibly important thing. And I know we do have some female listeners, I believe, who'll be like, now you know how we feel. And it's like, yeah.
Well, and by the way, like it's not NFL where there's 4 million breaks where you can just go. You know, you don't want to miss the game if you can avoid it. Okay, Clive. I'm curious to just sort of do the temperature taking a little bit, which is, I see this. And by the way, when I see that, I think that this divided opinion, I don't mean some weirdos on a social media website. I mean in my WhatsApp chats and the friends that I speak to by phone, and you guys, you know, when I talk to you and Paul on the instant reaction, Clive. So I think it genuinely divided opinion. And I'm curious how you feel just about maybe why there's two different perceptions of this game, and overall which one feels more connected to how you experienced it.
Yeah, there's always it depends how you look at football, isn't it? I mean, how you experience football. I was quite anxious towards the end of the game. So if you talk to me 5 minutes after the game, that's going to be my primary emotion. Before the game, I sort of said to you, I'd love it if we had no shots against us on target, remember? To sort of rebuild our base, you know, no shots at all. We just conceded against Wolves. I just wanted to get back to that version of Arsenal. And from there, we can start to get our attack going. I've had thoughts about our balance of our team, particularly in midfield, and how that's changed. I've had thoughts about our reversion back to slow build-up, you know, rather than direct attacks. Again, that could be personnel-based, lots of changes in the group. And so you have all these thoughts, and they become, you sort of said that we disagreed on the IR. I'm not sure we disagreed. We just had different priorities.
Well, we disagree about that.
Yeah. And
we all saw the same game.
We all saw the same game. I think we all agree with what we all said, but we have a different priority. Like you, Elliot, were talking about, you're really happy with the defense. I don't know what mood I was in, but I was in the fact, come on, lads, give me the second goal, because, you know what I mean, I just need to feel better about the performance. It was a 2-0 game. Let's not mess about. That was a 2-0 game.
Yeah,
that made us look at it slightly differently. And then we have a situation where, you know, Tim was, I think Paul was talking about our build-up and how we needed to quieten them down. And I totally got that. I think, Tim, you agree that as well. When we go to Liverpool, we have a style of play when we go to Liverpool. And I mean that when we go to Anfield, and Tim's been there many times. I know you've been to Goodison many times. And you do not want to wake up that crowd, mate, because you're in the washing machine if you do. And I think Arteta plays football to not wake up that crowd, to make it a basketball game. And so there's loads of different contexts to it. And some of the contexts are for now. Some of mine are for the future, where I think we need to go to get better. You know, if we want to win this thing, we need to ask ourselves some questions about our goal threat. You know, and whether you agree with me today or not, say, Clive, we just won. I'm telling you, and I don't say that very often, I'm telling you, we need to improve our goal threat. We need to improve the amount of goals that we score. Otherwise, we're going to draw 14 games again. And how did that look? You know, so that's where I am, Elliot.
Well, and so if you feel that the house blew down a little bit post-Bayern, you need to rebuild the house. And the first place you rebuild any house, and I only say this because I've built, you know, so many houses, is with the foundation. I hope that's right. Builders and architects and construction people get in touch. But the foundation for me for this team is still shot suppression, control of territory, restricting of touches in our box, restricting of the ability to run through the center of our pitch, things like that. And so for me, I went into this game needing to see that foundation restored. And so I think I reacted to the game positively in that foundation felt restored. At halftime, we had conceded 0 shots. By the end of the game, we conceded 5, worth 0.2 XG. It is beyond question, Clive, that you are correct, that the attack will need to generate more because football is weird. And as we know and have suffered from too often, you can get a nonsense penalty given against you, which could have happened in this game. You can have a ball ricochet off somebody's ass and into your goal, and you have a 1-1 in a game that should have been a 2-1 or a 3-1. So you have to protect against that by having a more efficient attack. But I felt the foundation returned. And so for me, that was a nice first step to rebuilding the house of this title-winning season. Not that it had been torn down. I realize people will say that that's an overreaction, but I mean that post-Bayern, some of the principles of play that I really think we rely upon had deteriorated. And of course, the changing of lineups and the loss of players is going to be responsible for that. Clive, you want to jump in quickly?
Only because I got to represent the voice of Paul in this case, because you said the foundation returned, and I think it's more why the foundation returned. I think that's the discussion I'm sure Tim will pull on that thread, how we control the ball. And that allowed us to not be conceding anything. Do you see what I mean? Because we had the football for majority of time, and so hey, it's just again, it's about priorities. You both come to the same conclusion, and then we're just discussing the why and how we achieved it. That's really all it is.
Yeah, I mean, an interesting point to your point. In that first half, we had 66% of the ball. They had 2 touches in our box, but we only had 10 in theirs. The second half, where I think they had a little bit more of an opportunity to come at us and the game opened a bit. They had 11 touches in our box, which is quite a bit more, but we had 33 in theirs, right? And so it depends on what your construction of the best Arsenal is, right? And it is a blending. It can't just be that they don't get touches in our box. We got to get touches in theirs and convert them into goals. And Tim, I don't want to do a big lineup section. Maybe this is a yes or no question. First of all, I think we do have to acknowledge that Everton were without some key players. So this is not even the best construction of Everton. But Everton away is a tough fixture for us. We have not been good. I think we'd won one of our last 5, I believe it is. But this lineup, swapping Capier out for Gabriel Magalhaes, and I know we don't talk first 11s here, but is this our first 11? To Mikel, currently.
I still think there's a question mark over striker, not specific to Gyökeres. I think there's a question mark over all of those strikers.
You mean who the first top of the pecking order is?
Again, like do the litmus test we always do, Champions League final tomorrow, everyone's fully fit. I think that's the only one in the team where it's like, I really don't know actually. And so but more or less, I think there are a few threads here. One is definitely, I very much identified with what Paul was saying in the instant reaction, which is basically like Arteta talked after the Wolves game. He said something about we haven't been trained, like we haven't had a chance to train. And when you don't have the chance to do that, you lose habits. And this for me felt like almost a deliberate overcorrection. It was like, we've lost these habits. Our away games have been too transitional. We've got to go back to the drawing board here. So I often say, like about some games, you don't really know until a couple of more games in the future, because I don't want us to do this again, if you know what I mean. But it felt to me very back to basics, first step, think of it like the dog. You yank the lead, right, to get some control back so that next time when you do throw the stick, it can run off and it can come back to you type thing. No dog trainers actually correct me on that. I know it's more complicated than that.
Hey, but I'm an expert in construction. You're expert in dog training. It's all good.
So it felt a bit like that to me. I think also you have to look at, there was stuff that was very specific to Everton. So that one game we did win at Goodison, we won it 1-0. And what did we do? We dropped Havertz and we played Fabio Vieira. So what does that tell you? We wanted to keep the ball on the floor. That was David Raya's first start for Arsenal. Took Ramsdale out, chinned him for that game, which remained ever since. What does that tell you? We don't want to hoof the ball. And even if you go back and look at our centre from that game at Goodison 2 seasons ago that we won, it was, I think, the only time we took centre, went back. You know, we take centre, we go back to Raya, he goes forward. We didn't do that in that game 2 years ago. I can't remember what we did against Everton last season. So it's all geared around keep the bloody ball on the floor. So there's lots about like, don't, who have they got centre back? Keenan Tarkowski. That's two guys who played for Burnley, right? Who played for Sean Dyche. So what does, so we obviously wanted to keep the ball on the floor. There's an additional context that Everton have had, apparently I'd read before the game, and had struggles this season over committing to the press. So Newcastle did them 4-1 recently. And if you go and look at the goals, a lot of them are playing out from the back. You tempt Everton on, you get them out of shape. The 2 times we hit the post in this game, that's exactly what happens. Go back and look at when Trossard hits the post. It's a 14-pass move where we go from the back, we tempt them on, we go in behind them. So that was a big, big part of the game plan, as well as, it's like keep away, right? It's don't give them the ball, no transitions, don't let this crowd get excited, don't let them get long throw-ins and free kicks and stuff. Just keep the ball away from them and they won't be able to get it. And like you say, Elliot, they were missing some players who in the ordinary run of things might have been able to go and get the ball a little bit more. So I think there was a lot of that to it. And I think the lineup probably broadly reflected that as well. We played Ødegaard instead of Eze. And again, what does that tell you our priority was? Do you want the high touch guy with no goal, with very little goal threat? Or do you want the guy who takes 12 touches, but 4 of them are shots? What did we go for? Who stayed on the bench and didn't come on? Eze, Madueke. What do? They dribble, they shoot, they do things that are very dangerous, but can produce transition. I think this was about keeping the ball rather than being defensive per se.
Clive?
Oh yeah, I agree with all that. We've had discussions, haven't we? So we all agree. That's what I mean. We disagree, but we all agree. You see what I mean? Where we're coming from. I've got a different theory to it. I believe that if we hadn't have won that game, it would have been called, why didn't Arsenal take the handbrake off? Because that was very similar to Anfield. We wanted to quiet the crowd, play. The difference was, and this is why I was okay with Anfield, although there was a period that we lost the lead, didn't we? We lost some stability there, and then we had a situation where we could have made a sub at half-time because players weren't fit enough then. Do you remember back then? Eze just joined, etc. They weren't fit enough then. What we tried to do, we did the same thing, bait them on, and then we went out to Marino, who played the 10 that game, remember? And then we tried to go over top and go to him. And my issue with this, which I totally agree with, by the way, the reason why I do agree with the strategy, because one time we started getting accurate, they got up and nearly got a penalty out of it in that period. And so the strategy was clear to me afterwards once I calmed myself down. But I was concerned about our exits. And our exits into Gyökeres, he's not a sure thing on back to goal. He thinks he's in Portugal. When people touch you, mate, you're not going to get a free kick in England. So you just need to stay on your feet. And Saka was good on receiving it first time, but wasn't as good as he always is. Do you know what I mean? And so we were very, very reliant on recoveries. And once we got the recoveries from Declan Rice, everything looked nice. And so I agree with the strategy, but I don't think we had as good as exits as Anfield, even though we lost and we won in this game. And I feel that Madueke has a huge exit in that game in Anfield. We could get into him in behind, and I think it was just part of the strategy. So I totally agree with that. It is. We're trying to look at this. This is a post-game podcast, right? So when you look at this game, everything was there. I thought we were a bit slow on build-up. I thought we could have got a second goal. Shock horror. I'm sure everyone listening would have liked a second goal. Do you know what I mean? It's not unique to me. You know what I mean? So, but there was some good things in there. There was some sparkling build-ups in there. I just think we have some things to think about for the future. But when we have that future discussion, Elliot, I'm here for you. I'm here.
Well, and look, I remember Mikel Arteta once said the way he wants to kill games is with 300,000 passes, right? We did that in this game. But the irony is I almost feel like we did that in this game from the opening whistle. You know what I mean? We really wanted to possess the ball. And I have to say, whether we regard that as handbrake or not, I think we'd gone way too far the other direction. It's okay to play direct. But I think, Tim, you made a point that I haven't been able to articulate, and you just clarified it for me. I think we had moved too much into everything being a duel and so many stoppages. And it's not just stoppages that we don't control. Long throws that take time. Long balls that result in players jumping for the ball and someone goes down holding their head and there's a stoppage. Long balls that lead to loose balls that lead to challenges that lead to stoppages. And I really do think The good teams, the great teams flow through a game. And if you are the more talented team, the more ball in play time is better for you and worse for them. It's more time for you to create a goal. It's less time for them to repel you. And I think the ball has not been in play enough in Arsenal games. I think we've been too oriented around stoppages. And I think what I liked about this game, at least, is that we weren't. And actually, there were some beautiful, lovely flowing moves from back to front in this game. The Leo chance that he should finish is a beautiful flowing back to front move. David Raya's distribution was sensational in this game, and there were some lovely moments where he distributed and we were away. And I just think if Zubimendi doesn't sky his shot, if Leo finishes his chance, if Zubimendi doesn't hit the post, if Gyökeres' turn and shot isn't blocked by Tarkowski well, there are those moments. If Bukayo Saka doesn't choose the weirdest right foot first time low finish and instead just opens his body and skies it, that's a goal. Like, suddenly I think we would come around to the flowing moves that we had. But Clive, that to me was one thing I really liked about this game, is that the fractious nature of our games recently, I think, has been a benefit to the opposition. The stop, start, low ball in play time approach. And I think we've contributed to that.
I think that's just the nature of Premier League football this season, that every restart is taking a long time. That's not what I meant by direct. I mean, our behaviours at the start of the season was far more, we get the ball, we go forward very, very quickly in ones and twos.
Yeah.
But that's a better word, verticality. And I don't think we've been as vertical as recently, right? So, and I prefer us that way. I prefer Arsenal playing against unsettled defences. That's my preference. Because recently we're playing against back to the blocks again. Why is that? Because they've got time to get there. It's very, very simple. They've got time to get there. So hey, look, I've seen a reversion back to what we were doing last year, and I'm not all for it. We're top of the league, top of the Champions League, and we're about to go into a League Cup quarter-finals in the next few hours, and could be in a semi-final. So this is not the end of the world. This is about style preference, about where I feel we are, where I don't want us to go again, and the players we have on the pitch, and that has been very inconsistent. So I'm not in conclusion period. I just wanted to clarify, direct to me is verticality rather than big long throws, which I think we're crap at.
Yeah, and by the way, like, I didn't mean that I don't like us being a little more direct at times. I just think we have to find a balance where the ball stays in play and flows more. And by the way, we can influence that just by taking our throw-ins quicker, for example, or restarting free kicks quicker. There is a balance between getting everything into the box, which we can be quite effective at scoring from, and I understand why we do it, but also emphasizing it so much that the ball just doesn't get on the grass and roll around and players don't develop any kind of flow into the game. So that's an interesting tension. Look, Tim, let's discuss the big moment that came pretty early, which is the penalty and the penalty situation. So I listened to part of the Arscast, and I will agree with James and Andrew. I don't know that I think it's a penalty on Gyökeres at the back post. It's a deflected cross. There is a little bit of an arm around on the shoulder, but he's a big, strong man, and I don't think the contact is enough to put him off balance. That's my view. By the way, this goes back to my Mind Palace point at the beginning of the pod, and I know it was incoherent, so it was impossible to follow. That's what I saw with my eyes, and you may have seen something different with your eyes, but I don't have it as a penalty. But ball don't lie, because we get a penalty a few seconds later. So what's your take on that? And by the way, I want you to throw in a little extra something here, because I know you care about this a lot. I saw a lot of people really frustrated that we didn't have more players screaming for the handball penalty. And that essentially the argument is we need to be better at calling attention to those moments, which I think, whatever, it's a little bit of a side story. But what's your take on that whole couple of moments, the penalty not given, the penalty given, and our reaction to it?
Yeah, for a second when you said I didn't think it was a penalty, I thought you were talking about the penalty that was given, and I was like, well, I'm going to have to resign from the podcast if that's Look, what I'm dealing with.
There were a lot of good NFL games this weekend, and I think if a player wants to go up in homage to NFL, which will be played at that Everton stadium, I'm sure, and catch a ball from a corner, we should let him do it.
Yeah. So I at the time, it was interesting because I was at the other end of the ground. And I was largely pitch level, and this might also have contributed, like literally my view on the game might have contributed, because particularly in the second half when we were passing the ball around from the back, I couldn't see how close the Everton players were to it, basically. So no, having looked at it again, no, I don't. I think you can make a case for giving it, but you see that a lot, don't you? Just the defender just leans, and I don't think it's like into the small. It's like not a shove, It's just a little. It's a little nudge, isn't it?
Might as well ask you: should Gyökeres do better there? I don't really know if he can. He's kind of already off balance.
Well, I think if someone's coming behind you, I think it's kind of different. If the guy's in front of him and he collapses, much like Everton strikers did, by the way, the second they got over that 18-yard line, oh no! And actually, I think they did themselves out of a penalty actually by doing that. But yeah, like I think you can make a case for giving it, but I'm all right with it not being given. The one that eventually was given. I mean, I have to say at the time I couldn't see it because I was 100 yards away, but the person next to me was like, credit to his eyesight. I mean, it was obvious, don't get me wrong, but he was like, that's a really blatant penalty. And I was like, is it? And it took a little while. And obviously, once there's a successful VAR appeal, once VAR gives something, they do show it on the screen in the stadium. And when they showed it, everyone just laughed. There was just laughter. And then there was like a secondary, why did he look at that for so long? Like, what was it?
Couldn't figure that out.
He was at the screen for a long time. A push, maybe.
I don't know if there was a secondary foul that an Arsenal player was committing that they were looking at to see if it came before.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing he could have looked at. Is like, okay, that's definitely a ball. Did someone maybe give him a bit of a nudge or something? But yeah, I mean, and ultimately they both came from, that was a decent corner to the back post, and we're seeing like a lot of that, particularly, well, to be fair, I was going to say without Gabriel, it seems like we're aiming for the back post a bit more. But to be fair, the last corner we scored from at Burnley was Gabriel on the back post. And we've got a couple of guys who can really get it there, like whip it. Like, Bukayo Saka's going to score one at some point. I think Declan Rice will score from one directly without it hitting anyone else at one point because they really get some whip on it. But also the move for that Gyökeres kind of chance was really nice. I think we saw some really nice stuff from Saka and Timber in terms of their combination. And Timber in the last couple of months has really picked up that kind of underlapping run quite a lot, particularly because people double up on Saka so much. And this was right in front of me in the second half. There was that one where they got in each other's way. And that really should have been a goal as well. And that's
Saka and Timber got in each other's way.
Yeah, and that like barely shows up on our XG. That Gyökeres, that doesn't show up on XG at all because there's
by the
no
way,
shot.
Just before the penalty, Gyökeres had a header that was just over, and it came from Saka playing Timber in on the overlap. And it was actually a poor Saka pass. It kind of sent Timber wider than he wanted to, and he had to cut it back to Odegaard. But they were right on the brink of finding something really special in this game.
And they worked that side a lot, and Trossard was coming into those kind of nice number 10 areas and stuff. So there was good stuff. We'll go on to this, but undoubtedly, though, what everyone agrees on is we need to start getting more out of our attack pretty soon.
Yeah. So it's, look, the penalty is obviously a penalty. The non-penalty, like whether you have it as a penalty or not, it ultimately doesn't matter. It's not given. I think one of the reasons also it may not be given is like, if you give it, you probably have to give a red card there too, I assume. And that's a big decision to make off something that you can get away with not calling a penalty. So maybe it's a case of like, I don't know that I want to give this because then I also have to give the red card, which you could say that's not how a game should be refereed, but it is what it is. Clive, quickly on the penalty, surprised or not that he took it, and thoughts on the penalty he took?
Yeah, we took a great penalty and it went in. And so
not everybody thinks that, by the way. You'll be surprised to hear.
Well, yeah, mate, I'm not being funny.
It's not in the corner. Let's just say it that way. It's too hard to save. It would go through the keeper, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say, really.
Here's what I'll say. I think Saka's last penalty was better. And right now, if it's the last penalty of the Champions League final to win the Champions League final, going into the season, I would have said it's Gyökeres' penalty all day long. Saka's penalties this season have been absolutely insane. So I don't know.
Yeah, Elliot, you are quite entitled to have that opinion. I thought the penalty was fantastic. Was I edgy beforehand? Of course I was. But and there's been a bit of a feeling with me that some of the ball's not going his way. Could be a little bit of a trust issue, maybe. And sometimes footballs just do that naturally. They go to an option where they feel more safe with, or feels them get them going a little bit more. But that was the ultimate trust, wasn't it? We're 0-0 away from home. They said, go on then, you take it. And so that's really, really good.
It also shows you that confidence is still in him, right? The way he takes that's not the penalty of someone who's feeling insecure about their situation.
Yeah, when we have something like this, which is obviously polarizing, and we can obviously, some people have a different view of what he was for us, looking around at other people and other clubs like Haaland and comparing, and looking at Ekitike and comparing. They're not comparing to some of the other strikers not done so well, and the fact that he has scored more goals than anybody else in our club this season. Don't worry about that too much. He's not really done it properly, maybe. Some of the more technical aspects have been a little bit patchy, particularly back to goal. I didn't really expect that. I'd expect him to read the referees a little bit more by now. I think he still thinks he's not playing in England, and I've said it a few times, maybe more times than I should have. But I think he's expecting more help from referees, and it's just not going to happen, mate. You look like a wardrobe, so play like one. Do you see what I mean? And that's the way it goes. And I mean, even on that penalty, I actually think the first penalty was a penalty. What O'Brien did was bumped him early, and he did it. So when the ball goes past, your eyes are saying, well, you could just head that in. But he's already been bumped. And the natural thing for a striker is to think, well, I can probably go down here. Well, actually, I'm thinking, mate, just if you can stay on your feet, just head it in. And it was a great moment for you. But hey, look, why would he go down if he didn't get bumped? And that's the truth. And he got bumped, and it would have been a massive decision because that would have been a red card and a penalty, right? And that would have changed the game completely into the lowest of the lowest block. So maybe it's a good thing that didn't happen. But I think he knows how to kick a football, Elliot. I don't think it's that difficult. He knows how to kick it. He kicks it really hard, and
he's just got to do that more.
He's got to do that more, and it's interesting.
Can I ask you on that point? So the one where Saliba was imperious on the ball in this game. The one where he drives into midfield and slides it into Gyökeres, and Gyökeres takes a really good first touch, turns and shoots, but he can't get separation from Tarkowski. Tarkowski gets in a good block and then goes off Gyökeres' goal kick. I want to ask you about this specifically because is that an example of Gyökeres, that half step of extra pace on his turn to get his shot away in Portugal? That's a clean shot and probably a goal. In England, Tarkowski gets back. Is that just great defending, or do we want to read into that a little bit more about the ability to get separation when you turn?
I think if you want to have a critique of Gyökeres, for me, it's more technical than physical. I think the physical, there's more explanation for it. Not being in the right place. Then he got better, then dropped away again, and he's starting to look a bit better now physically. But technically, some of the hold-up play and the numbers there, Elliot, has not been great. And even on that one, great run, 2 gears run across the face of the defender. Defender sees him a little bit late, has to react. He's at top speed, gets it on time. And his first touch, he towed it back towards the defender. If he tows it out away from the defender, he cuts across the defender, through legs, bottom corner, side netting, goal. And these are the details he has to sharpen up on. When he shifts it to one side, maybe that's got to be a bit sharper because the defenders are coming, they're coming hard and fast. I just want to give an example of this. Even when you get that angle pass, Isak scores at the weekend, and bless him, he's been smashed a half a second later, and he's broken his leg, right? And I'll tell you now, if it's a broken leg, he's done well. Do you know what I mean? Because Van der Ven was a million miles an hour. If that's an ACL, he's gone for a year. It's a broken
I don't
leg.
understand how it's not a red card, by the way. It's a scissors challenge.
This is England, mate. This is what we do, right? This is what we do. We allow that good, hard stuff. He got there as quick as he could. He went for the ball. He went for the ball at a million miles an hour and smashed straight through him. And that career is not in jeopardy, but what a start to a career he's had at Liverpool. And I'm not trying to be sympathetic. This is what happens a lot, and we just wave it off. So and
another reminder though that winning the window isn't winning football, because Wirtz and Isak were 230 million pounds or whatever, and Wirtz has basically been mediocre, would be polite, and Isak hasn't been able to get on the pitch. So
I'm not sure if Wirtz has got a goal or assist yet, and Isak's had a couple of goals.
He got an assist, I think, in sending Isak to be with the Angels.
Okay, sorry, mate.
I think he got an assist in this game.
Yeah, and basically, And this is the nature of football. It just takes a while, and I do feel for Isaac on that one. And this is the same thing. England defenders are proper, mate. In every single team, they move well. I think it's showing up in Europe. When we go to Europe right now, the English team's doing so well physically. They look so strong, really strong, and against the best competition. So Gyökeres has got a bit to do technically, in my opinion, to really get there. He's got to sharpen up his feet, sharpen up his head, get his feet set, protect the ball, get on the angle, don't receive it straight, and start to bounce and move. And realise you can't be basic and do it in one run. You've got to do it in two. You've got to sharpen it up a little bit, do it in two. And I'm sure the coaches are working with him, because we can all see it, can't we? So we just need to work with him.
And look, I get it. There are moments where he's doing exactly the right thing and it's not necessarily being rewarded. We can see that too. But the goal of Arsenal Football Club isn't for Victor Gyökeres to be good. It's for Arsenal Football Club to be good. And like the one that I've seen people take issue with is where Timber was in on the overlap. Gyökeres does a great job running fast, hard, early to get across the defenders. And the ball across the box is on if Timber wants to play it. And Gyökeres maybe has a tap in. It's a hard first time kind of pass right across the corridor of uncertainty. You can get it wrong and it goes right to the keeper. Instead, Timber cuts it back to Saka. Saka should score. Saka should score. He's got the keeper out of the goal, and he goes low with his right foot first time. If he goes high with that, it's a goal. If he gets it, takes a touch, puts it on his left, he roofs it, and it's a goal. He doesn't. But my point isn't about Saka missing the chance, is that people want that slid across to Gyökeres. The goal isn't to maximize Gyökeres, to maximize Arsenal. And I think the pullback leads to as clear a chance as you could ask for from your best player. But to be fair to Gyökeres, we can also analyze that that's really good early hard running. It doesn't have to be a goal to credit the player for doing the right thing, right? We should be able to analyze football around whether the players are doing the things they should do. And I think it's a really good hard run from Gyökeres there to get into the position he needs to be in. So if Timber chooses that pass, it's not like the Wolves game where he's on his heels, but he gets onto the ball. And that's what we want to see. And so instead of being outcome driven, I'll say that's an example of Gyökeres doing the right things that he needs to do to be in the position should that ball come to him. And then over time, it does come to him. Tim, do you have thoughts on this? I think it's an interesting thing real quick on the Gyökeres thing is that Mikel Arteta, I think, showed you in this game where his trust factor is, because he only made 3 subs. 2 of them he made very late. He left the starters on for most of the game. But the one he made early is Gyökeres for Jesus. And I think that tells you, out of the group that was on the pitch, the old guard, Leo and Odegaard and Saka and Rice and Zubimendi. Well, Zubimendi's not the old guard, fair enough. Timber, Calfiori, and Sleep. Like he knows his core that he trusts. Gyökeres was the one he was willing to sub off quickest to get Jesus on, and presumably maybe just to have even more control on the ball. But what do you think of this Gyökeres performance overall, and Mikel's decision to make a relatively early change there to bring Jesus on?
Yeah, and he could have brought Marino on there. I'm sure that would have been going through his mind as well. I'm sure maybe it swung for Jesus just because he kind of needs the minutes for his fitness, but I'm sure he'd love to. I think Marino is part of that core group as well, even if he wasn't quite in this particular game. For me, this
he did come on. He did come on.
Yeah, he came on right at the end. For me, this was a better Gyökeres game, maybe from a relatively low bar, but a better one. And the reason I think it's a better one is because I think this is more. I actually think. Clive's right. Like he will. I remember Özil went through this a lot as well, and Özil is not the size or physicality of Gyökeres, but that first 6 months in England, where you look at the referee and the referee's like, no. But at the same time, particularly in the second half, when you're behind, you can see where those Everton players' hands are. And, I think when someone's got you in a sleeper hold, it is just genuinely difficult to do much about it. Or someone's pulling your hair, or, got their fingers where they shouldn't be and stuff like that. Like the stuff that referees let go is like, there's just times I was looking at it, I was like, how on earth can you think having like arms up round the neck, how is that not a foul? And it's really... It's unbelievable at times, but I do think that Gyökeres looks better. I think I'm prepared to change this view, but the games he's played away, his best games I think have been Newcastle away and Burnley away, and this was closer to those. Right, this was largely we want to keep the ball on the floor because we don't want to smash it up to Dan Burn or Tarkowski. I nearly called him Jagielka there. Very similar.
A very easy mistake to make.
Yeah. And whoever the hell 7'3" players Burnley have got as centre back, and I actually think that's kind of better, because then the physical fight is not about winning the header per se. It's more about your actual upper body strength. It's coming into your chest and your midriff and all of that. And I think he's better when the centre backs want to get close to him, basically. So this game, Newcastle, Burnley, Keane and Tarkowski, they're all over you like a rash. They're allowed to do whatever the hell they want. I think he almost needs to feel that contact, because what he is really, really good at is pinning and rolling players. Now, when he can do that in the penalty area, that's obviously better. You can't always do that as a striker. Sometimes we need you to do that 40 yards from goal. I think he's a player who needs physical contact. I think where he suffers and becomes a bit of a non-entity is when Wolves sit 10 players in their penalty area and say, we're not coming anywhere near you. You go over there 40 yards from goal and do whatever the hell you want. We're not following you. I think that's where he struggles a bit more. So I thought this was much better from him, and he should take heart from the fact that he was picked. I think it would have been easy not to. You talked about trust there, Elliot. Again, I'm sure that in his heart of hearts, maybe Arteta might have even preferred to go with Merino for this game up front. But I think he probably knew, I kill Gyökeres if I do that to him now. If I do that to him now, with all the conversation that's around, I think it's what's quite relevant as well is when he scored those goals against Atleti, the amount the team came over to him, that speaks very well of the camaraderie. But it also tells you when that happens is the players know that the guy's low on confidence. And I think it probably is affecting him, the not scoring, and he knows that. And Arteta's referenced it as well. He's protecting him, but he's saying, that's the deal. That's what's going to happen at a team like Arsenal. So I think you can see that as much as Arteta might be saying to him, you're doing a great job for the team, you're doing great stuff, the run you were talking about for Saka, the Saka chance, he takes players away from Saka by doing that as well. That's the reason Saka has 2 seconds to get a shot off. And I'm sure they're showing him all those clips, and I'm sure he's going, but I want to score. That's what I want to do. That's what I've been bought to do, and that's what everyone's going to judge me on. So I thought he played well in this game. He takes the penalty, gets his goal, wins the game. I think everyone needed that. But at the same time, I'm still not convinced I'd go with him against Villa and Brighton, just because I don't think that's going to be a centre-back up your backside situation.
It's funny because Villa, and maybe I'm misunderstanding what Villa are now, but I think Villa is a game where he can excel because I think they give you some of that room to run into. Brighton, I'm not as sure. I will say, too, for the people that treat him like he's not a footballer and that all he can do is run fast and kick it in the net, he did have a really beautiful moment in midfield where he received it and spun it out to Saka for a great counterattack, just as we saw him do against Burnley. It's not that he can't do it, just understanding one another. I want to move on, Clive, but not before we get another quick bit of feedback from you on this, because I want to talk about the first 10, 15 minutes of the second half, but go for it.
Yeah, so that bit where he received it and spun it out to Saka is what I mean by taking it on the angle. When you come at it from an angle, then it's a continuity pass. When you come at it straight, then it can only go back into the tunnel. So if you come at it straight, you know what you need next to you? You need number 10 right near you that you can bounce off to.
Yeah, well,
and those 2 games, Burnley and Newcastle, he had Eze at number 10. And look at the average position in those games. He had someone to play with. So when he's going back to goal to receive the ball, he has clarity. If he wins it, great. If he doesn't, he affects the exit of the defenders, and we pick up the second ball with a central number 10. And so his role becomes much more beneficial to the team. What's happened in recent weeks is we've gone back to wide triangles, check the average positions out for yourself, and when he's up there on his own, he's completely isolated. And I'm not sure he has the clarity and the technical ability to keep it, because I'm not sure he has that clarity of the next thing I want to do. What I want to achieve, I try and get a foul for my team on my own. I'm not getting a foul. Bloody, I was getting this foul last year. Do you know what I mean? And who's my partner to bounce it with? Who is it? So you've got to spin into wide areas, son, like Jesus done, who spent half time at left wing in this game. Or you do something, you come back deeper and your wingers will go ahead of you, and you come back deep and start bouncing it five-a-side. If you go do that, it might as well be Marino, sorry. Marino. So that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. Do you remember the run? There was one where he ran up the left-hand side, and he got the ball in behind up the left-hand side, and he tried to split two defenders in the box. He tried to pull his Leeds goal off again, remember? He tried to cut it back in, left-hand side of the box.
Who played that pass? Was it Trossard?
Was it Calafiori? It was either Calafiori or Trossard.
Trossard.
Actually, because it was one of his later...
Yeah, because the reason why I say that, because Trossard seems to get him. And funny enough, when I remember watching Gareth Bale struggling at Real Madrid, and Modric was the only one that passed to him. It felt a little bit like that. Trossard seems to get him and pass the ball in early. And because he knows it's coming, he goes. And I think he's a little bit hesitant with some others because they hold the ball a little bit longer. And so this is all part of the settling in period. I'm not looking to blame anybody. It's just part of getting to know your teammates and get the most out of one particular player. I'm not sure if Arsenal are geared towards getting the most from one particular player. They tend to be a collective, as Tim said, orchestra, the words that he used, and we don't do that. But when you've got a centre forward like him, I feel you are duty bound to give him something that he likes. So that's my view.
Well, so the only thing I'd say about that moment where he was played in down the left-hand side, I just don't think there are going to be a lot of scenarios from that where he's going to be able to carry it into the box, beat two defenders, and get his goal. But the distances to the other players in attack was very far, and he didn't have the ability. To your point, the clarity of the next action wasn't there, so he just put his head down and tried to bully his way into the box.
I'm fine with that.
But by the way, I have to say it because it probably won't get a mention otherwise, and I just remembered it. For the Zubimendi post that he hits, when he hits the post, that move, there is a Calafiori pass in that build-up, cross-field pass out to Saka, and it's just like, woof.
There are a few of them. That was a big part of the game plan. Yeah. Suck them over to one side or onto you and go in.
I thought that might have been Odegaard, actually, Elliot.
It was Calafiori, and it was incredible. Yeah. I want to talk midfield dynamic. I think there's more meat on that bone, and I think I want to talk a little bit about the 10 minutes post-halftime because I think that's an important period to discuss for a few reasons. So before we do that, I do want to let you know that it is natural to want to be able to watch the football you love, the TV shows you love, the movies you love, and even the social media content you love. But the leaders at Evil Corp do not want you to watch it because they invented something called geolocking. Now, this geolocking invention they created, it is pure evil. It is sprung from the minds of evil men who say, no, you shall not watch the content you wish to consume because you are currently occupying a few atoms of the wrong continent or nation, so you cannot consume this content. But the good people at NordVPN said, nay, you shall watch this content. You shall click a button on your device, and you shall be able to tear down these geo fences or geo walls. And that's what they've done. You get the NordVPN app, you click where you want to browse, and you can watch whatever you want to watch. Why wouldn't you do that? That's a question. Why would you have someone say, this is the funniest video I've ever seen, and you click on it, it says not available in your area? Why would you give up? Why would you let Evil Corp win when you can defeat Evil Corp with NordVPN? When there's a football match that you want to watch, when there's a show that isn't out in your area yet, NordVPN is your solution. Put it on any device, click the place you want to browse, and you can do it. Plus, they have threat protection, so if you're on dodgy stream, you're covered there as well. NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. You get a huge discount off your Nord plan and 4 bonus months, and it's 30 days risk-free. So, NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision, NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision, NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. Do not click. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Nailed it. Clive, do you work for, or have you ever worked for Evil Corp?
No.
Good. Don't do that. Don't do that. We must push back against Evil Corp at every turn. Okay, so Clive, I'm going to stick with you for a second. I had the ump over one particular period of the game, and it was a period of the game that I think we saw a reversion to some of the things that we have not liked recently, and that was that first 10 or 15 minutes of the second half. Following halftime, we did that thing. Go long a lot, don't pass it well, don't keep the ball, make it nervy, lose possession, let the game feel more basketball-y, let them drive through our middle. And I'm wondering what you think happened and how we sort of stopped it, stemmed the tide of that, because it started to feel like the game, the performances that I haven't loved recently right after halftime.
Yeah, so I suppose I don't fully agree with about some of the recent performances on the reasons why they haven't gone so well. However, in this period, I think we were just inaccurate. Some of our passing was just inaccurate. And it just creates momentum. It creates free kicks. It creates people not being quite ready to receive the ball and then losing it and then giving away a free kick, which creates territory, which then allows a long throw into our box, bouncing balls. Tim was in the ground. I don't know how many times you heard the word handball all the time, because it seemed to be the number one tactic, from the away fans.
Players are really asking about it. Given that there's so little clarity around handball right now, Clive, and anything can be a handball, I think it's led to players trying to call for handball every time the ball's bounced around the box.
They were just flicking the ball up around the box, bouncing, helping it on, hoping to find an arm, mate. And Grealish was in top form trying to get a penalty out at the referee, and it just felt a little bit like that. And obviously, after the game, I was more anxious about a lack of finishing during the game. That was the only thing they had. They were waiting for something like that, a set piece or a penalty decision. It was how they're going to score, really. And so we got a bit nervy, and there was a period where we were just inaccurate, really. And so yeah, that was all it was. I don't think there's anything more tactical than that. I think I don't want to over-egg it. There was nothing tactical apart from inaccuracies. I'm talking about things like passing the ball, Calafiori stepping over it, thinking someone was behind him, and he goes out for a throw. Do you know what I mean? Or was that for me? Oh, I thought it was for him. Next week they have a throw and they're going down the line. Do you see what I mean? Kick it off, get a corner. So, oh, bloody hell. Do you know what I mean? Literally, that's it. And with the Premier League going this year, the corner's like a free kick at the edge of the area, isn't it? And so, but our goal kick was fantastic on crosses. They took early crosses and he read them really well. And he hasn't had to do that for a while because people know he's good. Everton were struggling with their fluency in middle midfield, so they went very much to the early cross to get it into an area, and he read it because the crosses weren't great quality, and that's all it was really. They had a small period where we were inaccurate. I don't think we had any bad habits, I didn't sense anything, just pure inaccuracy and a little bit of lack of quality for about a 10-minute period.
Yeah, and the period sort of wraps up with their shout for a penalty. And we're not going to do a section on this because I don't think it needs it. So I'll just have my say on it and then shut you guys out from the conversation.
Good.
This is a classic example of anybody who watches football currently knows this is a penalty. And we got lucky. Now, I don't think this should be a penalty. This is two players contesting a loose ball, both trying to kick the ball. There's nothing in it, really. But one player gets the ball and the other player gets the player. This is the same thing that kind of cost Saliba the penalty against Brighton with his head, except with his foot. Except in that case, Saliba got the ball with his head. That one is a more egregious example of it shouldn't be a penalty. It's a coming together. This is a coming together. Shoulder to shoulder is a coming together. Leg to leg is a coming together. This is not a penalty. But I think we can all agree, if we're being honest, this gets given as a penalty. And I think the only reason it doesn't is very simple. He retracts the landing gear. He takes both feet off the ground and he plays up the contact. And I think he does it and it costs him the penalty. I think the extent to which he exaggerates the contact costs him the penalty. I know there are some people that are passing around a video that suggests it actually went off Saliba's knee first. Guys, it didn't go off Saliba's knee first. It just didn't. This is like the gold dress, green dress thing, or blue dress, green, whatever the color the dress was. It's not that color. It's the other color. Went off. It didn't go off Saliba's knee first. But again, I don't think it should be a penalty. And I think the right decision was reached. But it is going to be a penalty if it happens again. So let's hope it doesn't happen again. Tim, before we get into the full meat of the midfield conversation, I think we should just take a second to recognize that whatever your configuration of the midfield ideally should be, or what the perfect midfield is, a platonic ideal of a midfield, whatever it is, it includes a player like Declan Rice, who game to game to game is just getting better and better and better. And Clive said this on the IR, and it was so good, I'm going to steal it now. If you're going to bitch and moan at your teammates in the Wolves game and scream and yell and storm off and be seen having the hump, you know how you make sure that doesn't become an issue? You go out and you play even better in a win the next game. And that's exactly what he did. He is a player with a unique capacity, despite the amount he runs and the amount of energy he puts in, to look better late in games. He grows into games, and he was brilliant in this game. He sets up Leo beautifully. By the way, it's a beautiful flowing move for that what should have been a goal, and Odegaard sensationally finds Rice. And Rice, the weight of pass matters. We saw so many wrong weights of pass to Gyökeres, to Timber, to Saka. The weight of the pass to Leo is perfect, but Mikel was understandably glowing in his praise for Declan Rice on his performance. Quote, unbelievable. His all-around play, his leadership on the pitch. I think it's interesting he called out leadership, by the way. The amount of balls that he regained as well that allowed us to run. He has been incredibly consistent this year again. And what a massive player he is for us. And just from the stats standpoint, you know, if you tell me that Declan Rice is going to have the most touches in the game, I'm going to feel pretty good about that. And he did. 116 touches in this game. He had the most passes into the final third of any Arsenal player with 10. He created 2 chances. He obviously recovered the ball a hell of a lot because that's just what he does. 10 ball recoveries, which is, of course, the most other than David Raya, who just claimed crosses.
Most like aerials won all of his aerials.
Most aerials won. Yeah, so...
Yeah. Not what you'd associate him with, but
no. At some point, I have to turn this over to you, Tim. So there you go. How good is Declan Rice?
Yeah. I mean, so you know, I guess something I say a lot as well is like some players are made by the system and some systems are made by the player. This is a player who just makes stuff work because what he does basically, I think Clive alluded to this, he just cleans all the mess up. Basically, he's like a washing machine. Like that ball breaks for a second, does it? No, Declan Rice has got it. Don't worry. Like he just fixes a lot of stuff. I think that's what he does. I think you know, the thing about him having the most touches as well. Again, I think this was something you said, Clive. I can't remember if it was on one of the Patreon pods, but actually, is the personality of this team, has it come away from Odegaard and gone to Rice? You know, it's like the absolute, like, you know, the defining mind. Like the defining player in the team, because, like, yeah, his touches are a long way up. His creativity, even in open play, is a long way up. And he is just incredible. He's one of the most all-round footballers I think I've ever seen. You know, like, have you ever had that kind of idol, like, football discussion that's good to have sometimes, where it's like, if you could have 11 of one of your players, who would you choose? It's Declan Rice. Like, there's no doubt about that.
I used to say Yaya Toure to that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think Declan Rice is sort of that same kind of thing, honestly.
Exactly that. Yeah, because, like, could I see Declan Rice at centre back? Yeah, right back, left back, up front. I could see him everywhere. I really could. Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, like Clive's right. Like, a lot of the stuff we're talking about is quite highfalutin in terms of, like, keeping the ball, keeping the crowd and all of that. But you can't do that 100% perfectly in every game. There are going to be moments of chaos. There are going to be moments where you're disorganised. Again, see this in the women's team, by the way. They play without, like, a number 6 and talk a lot about, but if our structure's okay, that's all right. But it's like, your structure's not always okay. That's just football. And when it's not, you need someone who can just run back and win the ball, just like that. And we've got certainly the best guy at doing that in the world. And it's not even like, it's like probably his outstanding attribute, but he's got loads of others to go on as well. And look, I said when we signed him, I'd watched him closely at West Ham, and he'd add something to his game every year. And I think what we're seeing is he's played quite a lot of years now, and he's added quite a lot of stuff. It was really interesting as well that David Moyes obviously talked about him after the game. Declan Rice gave David Moyes his due, you know, like, had a picture with him and put it on Insta and said, I'm so thankful to this man. And David Moyes was asked about him afterwards and said, like, it's pretty much nothing to do with me. But he was talking about, like, what a great, you know, he's saying he's a great kid. He's a great guy to have around. And yeah, he looks like a unicorn player. Like, I'm going to breathe the words Patrick Vieira. You know, I think it's very similar. I really do.
Very, very similar, and maybe similarly misunderstood, right? In the sense that everyone thought, oh, Vieira's a destroyer. Vieira wasn't a destroyer. Gilberto Silva was the invisible wall, and Vieira went and did everything. And in a way, Zubimendi is that, so Rice can go do everything. And I think that is just sort of an interesting entry point, Clive, to how these dynamics of midfields fit together. And there's such an interesting conversation to be had that doesn't need to be shut down by bad faith about how we build the right midfield. And I think this is the other beautiful thing, because you've really made this clear to me. There doesn't have to be a first 11. A game doesn't have to just be one set of 11. You can change your face in a game. You can change your face based on the game that you have. And we finally have the ability to do that with the players that we've acquired and added into this squad. I do think it's notable that Zubimendi, his role has been a little less clear for me of late. And in this game, he had 2 very good goal-scoring opportunities, but maybe wasn't as good in possession and in build-up phase. So what do you think about how the midfield dynamic is evolving? I think it is still evolving is sort of where I'm at with it,
Yeah, you want to go back and listen to my post-Villa IR. That was a little bit hot for me, but that's the first time I saw it. I love the dynamics of Declan Rice and Zubimendi. I would not change those two for any two in world football. That's how much I believe in those two footballers. I think the combination is perfect. What they do, how they blend, how they understand each other, how they can do any job. So when they go high, they're still an effective player. They can counter press. And when they go low, they can defend. Look at Zubimendi's aerial duel numbers. Incredible. Right? So, and defensive interceptions. Yet he's the most accurate passer most weeks. Right? So, and Declan Rice, well, Tim's already done it. What's the point of doing it again? I mean, he's just a joke, right? When they do those things, they do a preview of a game, Arsenal v Man City. Who do you think the Man City player is going to be? It's going to be like Haaland, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And who do you think the Arsenal player is going to be? It's going to be Saka or Rice, isn't it?
Well, Saka, yeah.
Saka or Rice. And I tell you now, if it was today, it'll be Rice. And it's just sort of, it's dawned on me probably Villarreal pre-season when he didn't play and we were getting run through. And I'm thinking, it's just a pre-season game. I'm thinking, bloody hell, Rice didn't. But you know what? If Declan Rice is out there, I'm sure we'll be fine. You know what I mean? And this has just continued. I just can't see a situation where him not being on the pitch is beneficial. I think Forest at home, he didn't start, and Marino played very, very well. But hey, look, moving into the number 10 situation, or the third midfielder situation, I do believe some phases of this game, having Odegaard drop was what the desired tactics were, what we discussed earlier on. But overall, I believe that we've had an isolated centre forward since Odegaard's come in, because he has a tendency to play as a right 8. And that forces other people to move. Zubimendi's cross. Remember the cross pre-season, Bilbao? Setback cross first time, Gyökeres, bang, heads it in. Zubimendi can create on that right slot. Timber can create in that right slot. What you're doing is you're stopping people going into areas to do things because someone else is there continuously. When Eze plays, and it took me a while to get this, by the way, and I'm not saying Eze better than Odegaard. I'm saying when Eze plays the 10, he plays it far more centrally. And that allows other people to coexist with him. And he can create associations with the left side and the right side. And I feel as a team, we are structurally better for a central 10. I don't care who it is. By the way, Marino can do it. Havertz can do it. I think even Jesus can do it. Tim watches the women's team at the moment. Beth Mead is coming in and doing a number 10 role on occasions in certain phases of play. It doesn't bother me who does it. It's how you interpret the role. And the role for me in this team with centre forwards who are not lethal, and we've got Havertz who's played basically 2 or 3 games this calendar year. Jesus has played the same. So we've got 2 long-term injuries. We've got Gyökeres who's still settling into the league. And we got your defensive midfielder, mate, Marino, been the best of the lot from an efficiency point of view, but can't obviously play in all phases of games, right? So that number 10 position is so important to almost allow you to develop your 9. And if you look at this team, I don't think anyone's too concerned which of our 8 defenders play, if they're all fit. We know the 4 best that we'd like. Maybe we can debate 1 or 2. I don't think people are concerned about our centre mids. Always concerned about them getting rest. Left side, we got a bit of a deal there. I think Trossard won't do it for the whole season. But we've got other options there in Eze, for example, and Madueke, and we got other options if you want to do it. But mate, 9 and 10, that's it for me. That is the season. It's the season how we can make that area work is the season. I don't mean too dramatic. It's the season. Defensively, Elliot, we are going to, if we get our bodies healthy, we're going to be fine. Can we get that bit working? Can we get that centrality? Can we get the directness needed to play against unsettled defenses? If we can, we're going to be fine.
Tim, what's your take on that? And I do want to just call out in this game, I think there were two halves that were quite different in a way, because I think we all saw the times Odegaard early on in the first half was dropping deep all the way, back in the left back position between the center backs, receiving, going, getting it. In the second half, I felt he was making concerted effort to stay higher up and to the right, in that right half space, high up. And that's how you wind up with a very left side biased game where Declan Rice has the most touches in the game. But I think that there was a bit of a split in that. And I also think there were two periods of the game in terms of our midfield dynamic looking more or less effective, which is, I think in the first half, as we already called out, we had more of the ball, right? We suppressed shots. They had 0 shots in the first half. We had 10 touches in the opposition box, and we didn't really create much threat aside from the penalty, of course, which is a lot of threat. Comes from a handball in a corner, though. In the second half, when the game stretched out and there was more verticality and there was more back and forth, we had a lot more touches in the opposition box, right? We had a lot more threat. We created some really beautiful flowing attacking moves. And I think Odegaard was central to some of our most beautiful moves of the game in that second half, in what I think was a quite different game state and game approach. So how do you parse all of that in terms of how the midfield is looking and why it maybe looked different at different times in the game?
Yeah, I'd say actually something, just kind of an aside that's under discussed, I think, with Zubimendi is how good he is in the air, and actually how important that is. It seems to me that even when Arteta takes him off because he senses maybe a bit of redundancy, Marino's usually on. And I think that's another part of the reason Zubimendi will stand between the centre backs, because he's very good in the air. I think I'm with Clive. I think there's no debate about Rice and Zubimendi. That's kind of the double pivot. I think that's that, and the centre backs are and the goalkeeper
and
Saka. And Saka,
best.
yeah, those are the ones that there's just no argument about, and the rest are kind of interchanging pieces with preferences. Obviously, Timber, Calafiori, Trossard at the moment, but essentially, kind of on the outside of the team, really, bar Saka, things will probably rotate a bit more. I think I'm with Clive on that, that 10-9 combination thing. I think what's kind of interesting with our attack, and I'm not saying yet that this is a mistake, it might be, the way we've kind of built the attack, maybe we've overcorrected a problem, right? In that we didn't have enough options last year, and it's oh my God, we've done 3 transfer windows worth of shopping in attack in one go. And now what we're seeing is, and we've talked about this a lot recently, we're seeing there's not a lot of cohesion and chemistry there. And how do you get that when you're constantly changing everyone and everything? And, it's that paradox, isn't it? You want options, you want rotation, but actually when you get it, you kind of realize sometimes it's better not to have the choice at all. I think that kind of happened with Liverpool. And all of a sudden, obviously, Isak getting injured is terrible, but Isak getting injured and Salah going to AFCON kind of almost settles things down for them, because it makes them, it's going to force them to decide. And actually, I think you've seen that recently. They kind of took the decision to take Salah out, and that's created an off-pitch problem, but it's settled things down on the pitch where they've just gone, right, we're going to try and make this work. I think the interesting thing about some of the profiles in our attack now is they're so specific, which is kind of good and bad. So Madueke, for example, against Bruges, he scores twice, but then we have 2 games that aren't Madueke games because of his very specific qualities, so we don't get him in. And then we've got Martinelli and Trossard are so different, and the number 9s are all very different. But for me, the key piece about this midfield is there's kind of Ezra and Odegaard for that, shall we say, 10 spot, and they could not be more different. They couldn't be more different. You've got the high 500 touches a game guy who go and get the ball off the centre backs, but his goal threats completely disappeared. Or you got the guy who takes, on a good day, 15 touches, but 3 or 4 of them are shots on goal. And actually, sometimes in a team, you want a bit of diversity of profile, but sometimes the poles can be so far apart that they quite drastically change the way you play. And I think that's something we're going through a little bit at the moment. And we might get to a good stage where it's like Everton away, we want to keep the ball on the floor, we want to play keep away, Piggy in the middle, wherever you're from. Dictates out what you name that. So it's Erdegaard today, and Eza doesn't even come on because we don't want that. But we're at home to Tottenham. They play horrible football where they're 5-4-1. We're playing Eza because we want someone to get shots off. And eventually we'll probably find some of the relationships. I still think the best we have looked is Marino was not playing number 9 in my view. He was playing number 10, and I think Eza was playing more as a 9. I think that's the best we've looked so far this season.
Yeah, it's great to have these conversations with some smart people. I think
leave me out of this.
I think let's take this a little bit deeper, shall we? When you introduce 8 new players into your squad, what you have is a group of players that are desperate to play. And then you have Martin Odegaard had 3 injuries this season. And while he's been out, because when he got injured last year, he came back in, he tried to play to his top level, but he really struggled, right? We all thought he had a problem, he was losing a bit of weight, worried about the ankle. And we were all thinking, come on, come back, we need you, you run this attack. And while he's been out, it's like you're at work, you're in a project team, and you've all got your roles in the project team, right? And then one of you goes off sick for a while. And when you come back to the project team, maybe your role has been shared amongst other people. And now you've got to come back in and you've got to reintegrate into the team. And do you come back and try and do the exact role you were doing before? Or do you look for the role that the team requires? And this is my integration concern, because I no longer think the team is as desperate for build-up qualities, because I think the team has transformed and evolved where build-up qualities are no longer required from our number 10. What's required for number 10 is a lot more last pass, last action, last shot. And it may be 35 touches, not 65. But I'm okay with it. And the Newcastle game was the day the light was shone to me. I thought, oh my goodness, look at this team. Look at it. Look at the danger. Look at how we're crushing Zone 14. Remember, we kept saying Zone 14, Zone 14. The guy that sit with the scene ticket, Zone 14, Clive, what's that mean, mate? And I said, mate, it's by the D. Look how we're crushing it. Look how many people are in that zone waiting for the ball to drop. We're not doing that anymore. We split to the sides again already. So we need to reintegrate people into firm roles, get back to the correct balance of our units within the team. Get back to that. And as soon as we're back to that and the roles become clearer, to Tim's point, what Tim's saying really in summary is we're trying to integrate all these different profiles into a group. And they're so different. Well, they're not so different. It's easier to do when you create the right units with the right psychological and technical and physical balance. As soon as you have it, you see it. If you complex it by separating to wide areas to build up, well, I don't think we need to. We don't need to. These teams can't stop us, mate. And if we have people in the right areas, we can counter press and we can take them on that way. I just feel this is about integrating key people into our group again. We've got one more in Havertz, by the way, and Jesus to do. And I think there's a set of people in our front ends of our pitch that are looking at this thinking, I need to force my way in. And if I need to change the regime here and who runs this shit, I'm going to do it. And that's what Declan Rice said. I've had enough of this, mate. I'm running this show. I'm running it, and I'm going to show everybody what I've got. I'm no longer a lieutenant. I'm going to lead it. And other players go look at him and think, when I get a chance, I'm tearing this up. And I'm tearing this up, and I'm going to deliver. And we're going to be forced to look at people. Not coddle them, but look at people. And that's all what we want. If you think that's not happening in the club at the moment, my God, they want to tear into each other to get that shirt. And that's what we want. So we need to look at the game, look at what the team requires. Don't worry about who plays. Look at the role. Look what's needed. It's goals against. We've won it for the last 3 years. No trophies. It's goals for is going to win us that league, without doubt.
It's a title on the line. It's a Champions League on the line. It's a World Cup year. And if Kai is back for Brighton, the bench is going to have Nelly, Kai, Marino, Eze, Ethan, Nani. I mean, they may not all even make the bench. They may not even make the squad. So, yeah, there's a big fight on people's hands to decide what their Arsenal future and footballing future is and what our future is as a group. I'm going to do a bit here, if you'll allow it.
Go on, my son. Get in there.
So, the first thing I want to say is just some things on this game. I thought this was a fantastic game from Martin Odegaard, who in the first half, I thought he was doing some of the things that I don't necessarily connect to as much as being as necessary in a world where we have Rice and Zubimendi. I think there was some redundancy. I think as the game wore on, the way he stitched attacks together and the way we flowed through the thirds was brilliant. And I think that there was a clarity of purpose and role. And I think it really showed up in that beautiful flowing move that led to the Leo chance. It should have been a goal. And if that's a goal, we're watching it on repeat over and over and over again. And it's a great example of how you can build from back to front and right to left. And Saka slips Odegaard in the half space, and Odegaard plays a beautiful ball to Rice, and Rice is showing up in the middle, and Leo's on the outside, and it's just beautiful. So I loved it. I also want to say, and this, I'll crib this from you, Clive, how does it make you feel? There are certain players for the tense moments of a game when it's tight and it needs to get over the line. And I'm with the manager on who I think the players are for that moment. Because I can tell you this, on 75 minutes at 1-0, I was not thinking get Eze in this game. That was not in my head. Okay? I also want to say, I think what complicates this is that Eze, I think, has had mixed performances for us as we've tried to integrate a very different role. But I do want to say just a few things about how I'm thinking about this. One is about the actual construction of the midfield, and the other is about the actual debate itself. So let me do the construction of the midfield part first. And if you want to skip ahead maybe 17 or 18 minutes, I'll be done. Okay? The first thing on the construction of the midfield. I went back and I listened to some pods when we were saying, can Mikel coach an attack during the bad old days? And one of the things that we talked about, to Clive's point, is zone 14, centrality, access there, how we create attacks. How does City create attacks? They go in to go out. They go into the middle to go out wide. Manchester City made a big adjustment. They had to move on from Kevin De Bruyne. They're moving on from Rodri. Who did they get this summer? They got Ryan Cherky, and Ryan Cherky is a flawed player in a lot of respects, but Ryan Cherky will flip between the lines and get into central spaces and play the best final ball you ever seen. And they felt they needed that because that's what Erling Haaland needs, and it's working. It's not working perfectly, though, because they're getting attacked and they're getting run through. So it is an adjustment, and they have flaws as a result of that decision. I have always felt that Mikel Arteta wants 3 6s on the pitch more than a 6 and 2 10s. Okay, I think Manchester City's midfield have featured a 6 and 2 8-10s, and we've featured a 6 and 2 8-6s. That's what Mikel likes. He likes Mikel Merino as a midfielder. He likes Kai Havertz as a midfielder. He likes Rice and Zubimendi and Merino. He likes those midfields. And Martin Odegaard, whatever you think of him, Martin Odegaard will play hard in every third of the pitch, in every phase of play, and try to influence every phase of play. But to Clive's point, I think there is a question about, with Rice and Zubimendi, what is the dynamic we want in our midfield and what construction gets the most from Arsenal? And look, I've always said it. We make fun of it on the pod. I like the little fleet of foot, small space 10s. I like those players. I want to get them between the lines and little slip pass and a beautiful shot from the edge of the box. And I do think that when Martin Odegaard was providing huge goal and assist numbers, this was just a non-discussion. Martin Odegaard has been one of the best midfielders in the world for a number of seasons. The ball progression you get from him, the pressing you get from him, but also the goals and assists. Now, the goals and assists part, since some injuries and for a while now, that part has not been as clear, and I think the clarity of purpose of his role has not been as clear. And so I thought he was good in this game. I think he's a brilliant player. I think he's about as good as they get. In terms of discussing our midfield dynamic, we have a Ryan Cherky kind of decision to make. What do we think maximizes our attack without exposing us to flaws? And I think it is fair to point out that in some of the games where Eze has started, he hasn't been able to get into the game, and we've been run through in midfield as well. So there's a lot of moving parts in here. But as a last point, I want to say this. I have recently started to come into contact with some people that do not want to engage with this discussion, that it is somehow driven by a specific feeling about individual players or things like that. And I think this is a case of poisoning the well, because I'll tell you something. In the pubs in Bruges when I was out there, this conversation's being had. The pubs in North London when I was there, this conversation's being had. In my chats, my WhatsApps, this conversation's being had. It's not just some idiots on the internet who are trolling and are saying, strip him of the captaincy. That's nonsense, okay? But don't let that poison the well for you. Don't let that take a really interesting discussion, a really cool, fun, tactical discussion about the identity of an attack in a midfield that we have the potential to have because we have wonderful players with different characteristics. For the first time, Mikel Arteta has the ability to build different types of attacks, oriented around Kai versus Gyökeres, Leo versus Nani, Eze and Odegaard together or Eze and Odegaard apart. These are interesting debates. And let's not chill those debates because there are some idiots out there who will poison the well by making them in bad faith. That's all I would ask, right? We should really embrace having these discussions. You know why? Because we're trying to win big things. We want to be the best version of ourselves. Everybody on this pod and everybody listening wants the same thing, the best possible Arsenal. And there's lots of different ways to get there. And it's fun to discuss how we get there with this magnificent squad we built. So let's have that discussion, instead of yelling at each other that you can only have that discussion in bad faith, because that's not what we're about. And by the way, if you're like, what is Elliot even talking about? Then good. You're not coming into contact with some of the stuff I am. But I do read the reactions. I do read the comments because I care about what the community thinks. And I just want us to be open to the idea that these discussions can be had together. And that's it. Because Clive, whatever your football mind, yours, mine, Tim's, everybody listening comes up with as the best possible construction to get the most out of Arsenal, it's worth indulging it and discussing it, because we have a very big squad full of talented players. And if you look on that bench on Saturday night, there are a lot of players on that bench that probably think they should be on the pitch, you know?
Yeah, and I was watching a little clip of Eze and Madueke walking close together to go and clap the away fan, Tim. So you would have seen them walking over towards you, and they're walking together and they're mumbling. What do you think they're saying? Wait till I get on that pitch on Tuesday. Wait till I get on that pitch on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show them. And why am I not playing today? I'll tell you why. Because against Aston Villa, Nonny, you were crap in the second half defensively on the outside areas. And Eze, in the first half, you let someone run off your shoulder and we lost the game. So you'd have to sit now and watch and learn and remind yourself, this is how it is at Arsenal. You can't cruise around. Right? You've got to work. You've got to work really, really hard on and off the ball. And they're now coming into the team, and that's why they didn't come on in the last phase of that game, isn't it? Because there's another game very quickly. And on the Palace game, don't think they're tired. They rested 11 players for the Conference League game the week before, and then played their full team at Leeds, and then lost. But that we played on the same day, and we won. So they're coming to the game with the amount of energy that we've got, you know. So and so our team will be fairly strong. So these players will have a strong role to play in that game, you know. So I'm glad that this is why I've diverged the conversation away from the personal to the role and how you see the role of the third midfielder. Because as soon as you start to be seen to be critiquing a particular player, people say you have an agenda, and the discussion is then lost, which is such a shame. It's just a pleasure to talk to you guys and Paul. We can have this discussion in a way where actually for the team, what are we trying to achieve? You know? And I think that's the key for me. And Martin Odegaard can do that role. You know, that's it for me. And just do the role. You know, and that's where I am with it. And when we start banging in 3s and 4s, you won't hear a damn word from me. Not a single word. I don't care who does it, but I know that's what we need to do to win this league.
Yeah, Tim, I think, you know, look, I think this is a 3-0 game or a 2-0 game that ended 1-0. And I think in the second half in particular, and Mikel called it out, we created the chances to kill this game. And it's got to be frustrating because, you know, the manager is not the one who kicks the ball in the back of the net or makes the final pass. He's the one who puts the players on the pitch. And if the players don't execute, then the manager rightly comes in for criticism. I'm going to say something that's honest. I don't know what the best Arsenal lineup is right now.
Good.
I don't know it. Yeah. And I don't know that Mikel knows it either.
Good.
But I think over the next several weeks, he kind of has to start to figure that out. And whatever I want it to be is irrelevant. If we can find a group, because I think about 2 seasons ago in the run, we went on 14-1-1 or whatever it was to end the season. He knew the group then. And I think he's going to need to know the group pretty soon now. And whatever that group is, I hope the manager feels like he knows it, because that's really all that matters, you know?
Yeah, I'm less I think, like the group, the 11, I think that's March, April, really, stuff. I don't think it's January stuff, because we have a lot of competitions, like the Champions League games and stuff like that, potential League Cup games if we get through, FA Cup games if we get through, no, at that point, it is going to have to be rotated. I think we just have to be more comfortable with that. I don't mean we as fans. I mean, the group has to get better at it. And I think this is kind of some necessary pain we probably have to go through so that we can get to that kind of carousel point. I'm with you. Once you get to April or so, yeah, it probably presents itself to you. Like you said, a bit like it did 2 seasons ago. I think it's more just because the profiles of our players vary so much. I think it's more working out when certain players are needed. I think this was a good sign in that direction. Whereas, for example, against Villa and Wolves, we didn't get that right. I don't think we didn't put the right players. We put good players on the pitch. Pretty much anyone we put on that pitch is going to be a really good player. There's no real weak links there. It's are they the right player? And as I said earlier, there's 4 or 5 players who are always the right player and always going to be the right player. But I'm very comfortable with this game, for example. Yep, this is an Ødegaard game. We want 7,000 passes, so we put him in. And I think it's more Mikel getting better at that. What does this game call for? What does this opponent call for? I think he read Everton well in this game in terms of what they do. You're right. Everyone knows we need to get more out of our attack. We've got chemistry and cohesion issues there. We've also probably got an issue where if we had Salah or Haaland, we're not ever talking about that should have been a 2-0 game. That's a 4-0 game if we've got one of them. But we don't. We don't have that player. Our most elite attacker is Saka. He is the closest to that, but he's still not a 30-goal a season guy. And without that, we have to create separation in these games a lot better. This, a lot of our away games have been similar. Fulham 1-0, we kept that at 1-0. But Burnley, we got to 2-0 and the game went to bed. We put it to bed. We put the jackboot down and it was done. So it's about kind of getting that second goal. It's also about getting that first goal as well, by the way. And this is the first time in an away game, I think in 4 games, that we've taken the lead. And that's really important for us as well, because we don't have that surefire, this guy on the pitch is basically 1-0 type thing at the moment. And while we don't have that, we have to kind of find other ways. And I think the carousel is the way to that. But I think it's probably going to take a month or so until we're kind of good at doing that.
It's such a good point, because why isn't Firmino remembered as the goal-shy striker? Why is he not remembered that way? Because they had Mane and Salah. And so his role as a facilitator was actually seen as a huge positive for them, not his role as a goal-shy striker. And I do think that in the absence of us having an elite goal scorer, everybody gets viewed through the lens of can they get us goals. I'll say this, though, Clive.
Yeah.
I think Saka's showing some really scary form, and I realize the goals haven't been there in volume, but in this game, he was tricking his way past players. He was getting into the box. He's developing an understanding with Timber, and I really back him to get those goals. So I just want to know, Clive, if you think that maybe what we're seeing from Saka is foreboding. It wouldn't be foreboding if it's a good thing. What would it be? Is foretelling a potential breakthrough in his form coming? Because I thought he looked really good in this game, and it was kind of everything but the goal.
I think Saka's a wise dude now. I think he knows the rhythm of a season. He knows when to step up. The Wolves game was a great example, right? Everyone was flat, and he just said, you know what, we need to win this. I'll sort it out for everybody. You know what I mean? And he was head and shoulders. In the Everton game, he did what's required. Again, the game's become a little bit more right-sided. In this game, I thought left side was better in this game because Trossard's there. Calafiori was strong. Rice was strong. And even Zubimendi was flipping over to that side because the right side was sort of a little bit crowded. And so, yeah, I have a different view on Saka. I think when he got injured before Anfield, there was rumours of him being very upset. And I think that bothered him to keep missing these big games. You know, he wants us to get there. And by the way, if he plays at Anfield, I'm sure we win. had a million corners from that side, and we were well in set piece heaven in that period, and so we'd have won that game. And I just don't. I think he understands what to be in condition for the right part of the season, and I just think he's just doing what he needs to do. He's got someone there to take the weight off of him. It was a very good. Just on the other side of it, there was a very good video on YouTube from TNT Sport where they had Marino, Timber, and Arteta doing an interview. It's called A Breakdown, and basically Marino's talking about when he plays centre forward, how he rolls into an inside diamond, and obviously the wide players go ahead, and the wide players normally Trossard and Saka. And I was thinking it's very similar to what Liverpool did all those years ago, inside diamond with Firmino, but they had Mane and Salah, and we have Saka and who? Yeah, and if we're talking the biggest trophies, if we're going to play that way, then we need something else, don't we? On that side, someone who's a slashing attacker. If we want to play with a centre forward like Gyökeres, then we need a number 10, in my opinion, stays closer to him or feeds him consistently, part of his unit and not part of the right unit. That's what I think gets the best out of him. When Havertz plays there, I think Havertz could play with Odegaard. They've done it before. But I think he could play with Eze as well, a righty and a lefty coming in. I think Tim is spot on. The best we've looked so far this season has been with Mourinho and Eze in attack there, with Trossard on the left, Saka on the right. Who would have picked that at the start of the season? And so it's about that. It's about that chemistry. But in that chemistry, as we're trying to build the attack in our minds and build the roles and try to do some constructive thinking about how we get better, Bukayo Saka is in every one of our teams for as long as he can put one foot in front of the other, because he delivers under pressure. And that's the truth. People want more from him. Just wait. It doesn't matter at this moment in time. Just do what you need to do. When it matters, it's Champions League quarterfinals, semi-finals and final, and he'll be delivering in those games because he's done it 3 times now. It'll be the 3rd time, hopefully. And I will say something to you now. It's going to scare everybody. To do what we need to do this season, we are going to Manchester, Liverpool and or Chelsea to win a big trophy. You know, if it's a European trophy or a league, we have to go to Manchester City for the league. We're going to one of those teams in the Champions League, one of the English teams. We're going through them, and we're going to have to. So this team will be judged on big games and what we do in big games. So Elliot, please, my friend, do not rush to pick this team right now. Yeah. This team needs to present itself for those big games and be ready, where there's no debate on who should start. And right now they're running trials, mate. They're running trials, and they better be showing what they got to do, because come those games, we should be able to pick that 11, all of us, without any hesitation. You know, and I think that's what we're building towards.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I think Tim makes a good point, too, that there are certain names that we know are in every team sheet and will be for the rest of the season, and everything else may be up for grabs. The weight that Mikel's going to have to bear is very simple. He's got a huge squad of talented players, and he can only pick 11 of them to start a game. In any game we don't perform well or win, the reason will be he picked the wrong 11 players. That's the downside of having a big squad, right? Is that the easiest place to go when you don't perform well or win is that you pick the wrong players. But as long as he knows what he's trying to do with this group, he certainly has the talent to get where he wants to go. It is always important to emphasize that we are top of the Premier League and top of the Champions League at Christmas. So, and I do worry a little bit, to Tim's other point he's made, that we're not going to enjoy this season. I worry a little bit about that. And then we're going to wake up one morning and we're going to be putting on our clothes for the parade, having not enjoyed any of it. It might be miserable. I mean, I'm sorry. It might be miserable. You didn't
see yourself at the Wolves game. You look like you enjoyed it to me.
I was enjoying it. I was. I mean, that's the beauty of not always being there, is you can find joy in it. Look, a late winner, you should always find joy in. Let me just say that. All right. I think this is enough on this. We have the Palace game tomorrow. We'll do an instant reaction about it. Got to figure out where we're going to do the next main pod. It's either going to be Wednesday or Friday, I would imagine. I don't think anyone wants or needs a pod on Christmas Day. Maybe we'll record it then. I don't know. I mean, I know Paul's not doing anything. He's free. We can record something for you. I'm not doing anything. But it'll probably be Wednesday or Friday. And of course, we'll have a little Christmas message for you as we do every year. So thanks for being here. I do think these are such interesting and fun football discussions. Like, we really have a very interesting set of football discussions to have this season. And I just hope that people will arrive at these discussions, right, and engage with these discussions with a sort of intellectual curiosity and enthusiasm to have them, rather than the enthusiasm to shut them down and say that they shouldn't be had. That's all. And so, that's one of the reasons I really appreciate everybody who listens, because I think that you do take that approach to it. And if you don't, I can give you Paul's email. He'd be happy to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Can you 10 seconds to add something else? Because I think it's important to address it. But
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Brilliant. So there was, people will have seen this on social media, but there was something about, and this is kind of an old chant that's gone on for years, but like a chant, feed the Scousers, right? That's gone on for many, many years. Something really, it's a shame they need to do it. Something really good Everton need to do. That they do is every time the away fans sing that, they flash up the local food bank on the scoreboard. I thought it was really embarrassing that they had to do that so many times during the game because of Arsenal fans singing that song. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, it's just a bit of a joke, it's just a bit of banter, blah, blah, blah. I think it's really worth educating people on why that's not the case. And, I pride myself, I think we all pride ourselves on Arsenal being a club of class and tradition and history, and let's not forget the class side of that. Also worth saying, this shouldn't be a regional debate at all. Islington Food Bank has made twice the number of donations this year compared to last year. So this is not a regional problem. It's not sung at any other supporters from any other area of the country either. So it's very specific to Liverpool. And when we were outside afterwards, it's fair to say a lot of Everton fans were very upset about it. It was kind of difficult to explain to them in that moment. I agree with you. I'm with you. But yeah, I thought that was below where we should be. And I felt like I should say that.
Well said. There's a lot of need all over, and taking the piss out of that is not appropriate, not necessary, and certainly not something to be tribal about. I think whether it comes to any of these issues of poverty, racism, homophobia, any of that stuff, it's not a tribal issue. It's a human issue, and we're all humans. And as football supporters, we should all be together in those moments. So, well said, Tim. Certainly, and kudos obviously to Andrew and James. I know they're giving money to charity. We're going to be doing our fundraiser again, and give quite a lot ourselves. And it's just important to be a citizen of the world first, and then a tribal support of Arsenal second. I'm happy to laugh at Spurs getting set down to 9 men and losing. Absolutely hilarious, right? Happy to laugh at the misery of other clubs.
I think Romero was a little bit unlucky, to be honest.
Oh, for God's sakes. Clive with his football take. Enough. All right, we've definitely gone to the end of this podcast, but thanks for throwing that in there, Tim. Appreciate it, and thanks for being on.
My pleasure as always.
Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to everybody. And I love you, and I hope you're doing well. And if you're not doing well, I hope you know that you are loved and that you have people that care about you. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, there's a game tomorrow. And then I think the FIFA Inter Toto Secondary Blue Division Cup 2, we just got brought into that. That plays Wednesday, Thursday. And then Friday, we have a game. And then Saturday, no, not really, but almost. Anyway, we love you, and we will talk to you after Arsenal 10 Pals nil.